What up, everybody? It's your man, DJ Caveman. We're back again for episode 13 of The Porch. As always, the world-famous Tom DeNucci, live from the actual Porch, and myself, DJ Caveman. Today, I'm in the dungeon, the cave, a.k.a. underneath the porch. But we back, man, after a little bit of a hiatus for this pandemic. Everybody's nice and healthy, but we still doing our social distancing. We're only in phase 1, or maybe phase 2 now, right? Today's phase 2. What's going on, Tommy? How you doing, man?
Hey, it's good to see you, man. Hey, listen, we took a little time off. Everybody needed a little bit of time to regroup. You did a little writing. I did a little writing. And now we're back at it to talk about Agent Toby Barks. And in the meantime, it's kind of fun because Agent Toby Barks came out. So this movie's actually out there right now. You can get it. You can check it out. It's fairly fresh. It just came out in May. And here we are in June. So actually it might have come out in April, but whatever, it's out and we're going to talk all about it today. So it's good to see you. On a positive note, hey, phase 2 is here. I see a lot of people kind of, coming out of the darkness, getting out there a little bit, getting to a chance to see some friends that they haven't seen in a long time and do some things that, hey, we just haven't been able to do for the last couple of months. So, hey, let's slowly get back at it, nice and safe, at a crawl, and talk about this movie, which, let me tell you just real quick before we jump into this. Movie sets are fun and they can be fun, but they can also be a lot of work and they can be difficult sometimes, depending upon the type of people you get paired up with and the type of crew that you have. It can really make a difference on whether you have a good experience or a bad experience. This movie I look back on very fondly because it was nothing but really cool people that I love working with, people that I've worked with many times in the past, and some people that I worked with for the first time, but for whatever reason, everybody just gelled. We clicked, we vibed, however you want to phrase it. I look back at this one. This was a good one. So I'm excited to talk about it. And here we go. And Daryl, you've checked out this movie too. So you're
It was good. I checked it out. Available on Amazon Prime right now. I'm sure it's available other places, but that's where I watched it. It was good, man. It was cute. It was light. It was easy to watch. You know what I'm saying? The acting was pretty good too. So, yeah, man, I had a good time. We watched it with the fam. We went out and got ourselves some quarantine fish and chips, and we sat and checked it out the other day. And I found myself giggling from time to time.
Were those fish and chips served in a doggy bag? Dad jokes got to come out. You gotta break out the dog jokes and the dad jokes. All right. So today's show, we're gonna try and get as many dog dad jokes, and that was our first one. So the fish and chips came in a doggy bag. So Daryl's there. He watched it with the fam, and they dug it. So hey, look,
it was really good. And we watched it. We also watched it with our dogs. Our dogs were in the audience.
The dogs, his dad joke number 2. He's like, no, I'm serious. The dogs were there.
The dogs were there. They also enjoyed the acting as well. So
hey, listen, if they stuck around, to me, that's the biggest critic in the room right there. That's a big part of our audience, the canine audience.
They were intrigued. So tell us, how do we get to Agent Toby Barks?
Well, this was one that, so I spend a lot of time with Richard Switzer. He's a collaborator of mine, producer out of LA. And, we were just kind of hanging out. It was one of my trips that I'll take out there sometimes just to chill. And we were hanging out at, I like to spend a lot of time at the Dream in Hollywood. Really cool hotel, fairly new. It's only a few years old. And it's just got a cool vibe. And I kind of like being around there. And we were hanging out there and just kind of walking around the area, talking like, what are we going to do next? And Richard has always been wanting to do a talking animal movie, not because he has some, sick affinity towards talking animal movies. He's not like obsessed with the genre. The truth is, talking animal movies do really well financially. There's a niche for that in the market. Like, that's a market right there. Like, kids love talking animal movies, particularly dogs, because dogs are very easy to train. I want to say easy to train. I don't want to lessen the accomplishment of training a dog. But as far as animals go, that's you can do the most with the dog in terms of like starring in a movie. Air Bud did it. They made 50 Air Bud movies.
Oh my God,
you
so
know,
many.
they had Air Bud. At one point, he's like playing he's shooting table tennis. You know, like they had the dog do every human sport feasible to the imagination, and they made a killing with that franchise. So basically, Richard's always had this idea of, hey, why don't we make a talking animal movie? And that kind of got to like, oh, wouldn't it be fun if there was this like talking James Bond? I think that was kind of Richard's original pitch. He was like, you know, what if James Bond was a dog, you know, 007 dog kind of a thing. And then it was one of those concepts that, again, like I think we took a walk around, you know, like Hollywood, and we're on Hollywood Boulevard, just kind of like walking around, and in a couple blocks of a walk, we kind of came up with the whole concept. Like, okay, he's a spy by night, family pet by day, and then, you know, one night, unbeknownst to the kids that he lives with, well, they got to come on a mission with him because he accidentally gets kidnapped. And it's just classic Americana, you know, classic storytelling. You know, we've all heard this story a million times. Now these kids have to go on an adventure. And of course, we had a really cool cast put together. And, you know, really, Richard and I came up with this movie, conceptually at least, you know, over a couple coffees and in a walk around Hollywood Boulevard. And that was in February of, what was it, 2017. And then, I'm sorry, February of 2018. And then by May of 2019, we were shooting the movie. So, I mean, you're really talking only, you know, a matter of a few months.
That's a quick
We
turnaround.
went from, just talking about it to, okay, let's make it. And that's Richard too, you know, shout out to Richard. He's you know, he's 24 years old. I don't think he's turned 25 yet. He will be turning 25 soon. He's already produced, you know, a couple dozen movies. So he knows how to move quickly, clearly. And we moved on that one pretty fast. Shot it in May. I think it was May 6th through May 6th through 20 something. But it was a 14-day shoot. And we kind of just rocked it out. So that's how it started. Just a little, hey, imagine if there was a dog who happened to be a spy conversation.
Very cool. And now, so Toby Barks, not to be confused with Agent Cody Banks, which I've done numerous times. Babe, we got to watch Toby Barks. Excuse me. But not to be confused with Agent Cody Banks, but this one was filmed in Rhode Island. Again, so another ode to Rhode Island kind of thing. I saw a lot of recognizable landmarks from the inside and from the outside that I was like, oh snap, that's, you know, this place or that place. So again, filming in Rhode Island is a thing that you do regularly. But what made this experience a little bit different than the last, you know, movies that you got a chance to film in Rhode Island?
Well, first off, let's talk about the name for a second. You know, that's a strategy right there. You said it, like, you know, you confused it with Cody Banks or Agent Cody Banks. Yeah. And like, that's the idea, you know, like we want people to kind of have that confusion. You know, it's not confusion meant to, we're not trying to deceive anyone, but it's almost like that's a common thing that people have already programmed in their head. And now when they hear this, it's like, we're going for that. It was actually pretty funny on Twitter. The writer of the Kobe Banks franchise tweeted something like, "Oh wow, look at this! Like 15 years later, and they're using this title for some dog movie." And a couple people tweeted a little bit of troll stuff like, they should get their own name," kind of stuff. And he tweeted back something really cool. And forgive me for not coming up with the guy's name. You know, maybe if we ever, when this comes out, I'll drop it down in the comments. But he basically said, no, I think it's cool that, you know, 15 years later, people can use this title and it's somebody's first movie. It's somebody's first time acting. It's somebody's first time, you know, whatever, you know, basically he was just very positive about like, hey, my movie actually could spur something positive moving forward and still kind of live on. So it's all good. But basically back to shooting in Rhode Island. So shooting in Rhode Island, we kind of dusted off an old Rhode Island relic. A lot of people locally will know about a nightclub called Mardi Gras, which was basically a multi-club. It had a hip-hop bar, a country bar, and a rock and roll bar. And then in the middle of all that, it had like a Jimmy Buffett, Margaritaville type bar. So you had like 4 bars in one. At one point, there might have been 5 bars. There might have been like a disco in the back, but it was insane. It was a crazy little building. And since it had all these different bars, they all had their own little like look and feel and world, if you will. So when you're shooting a movie, that kind of helped us out because we knew that for Agent Toby Barks, we wouldn't have a lot of days. You know, this was going to be shot in 14 days. We made this movie for, you know, a fairly low budget in terms of movies. So we had to, we've been over this on the show before, and I'll just go into it briefly, but anytime you move, like if you move your entire production, it's expensive. You know, everybody's got to pack up and go somewhere. And the time that it takes just to pack up all your gear, all your equipment, and all the food, all the tables, all the chairs, the infrastructure that is a movie, by the time you do that, that's almost a half a day right there. So you're paying everybody, but, you know, talking about by the hour here, you know, you can lose an entire day just moving. So we want to stay in one place. So when you shoot at a place like Mardi Gras, it's a multi-club. It's got all these different kind of structures within one structure, which allows us to shoot multiple locations under one roof, basically. So we were able to do that at Mardi Gras. My friend Sam, his family has owned that building for many years. And, you know, we worked a great deal out with them. They did us a really great favor, and we got in there and, you know, we're able to rent the place out very inexpensively. You know, they really did me a favor. And, you know, we were in there for a couple months, you know, building sets and things like that. And luckily, this is where, you know, filmmakers out there that are listening to this, use every contact you have. I mean, this is a guy that I've known for a long time. We've been friends since we were teenagers, and his family happened to own this building. And guess what? If it wasn't abandoned, and I don't want to say abandoned, it's not like there were, you know, cats living in it, but, you know, like if it's not a working building, this place was closed, then you're really in business because you're not going to interfere with anyone's day-to-day operations, you know? So we had that going for us. The fact that this place was relatively empty and, you know, nobody was there, and we kind of had free range over it. And we got right in there, and, you know, Rhode Island's great, man. We shot at a house in Warwick. Ann Mulhall of LDI Casting.
I know Ann.
She's awesome. Yeah, Ann's great. And the cool thing about Ann is she has so many contacts in Rhode Island that we brought her on to do a little bit of casting with this, but really also help us with some locations and you know, just do some kind of good old fashioned producing type work, you know. And she was a big help and found this house for us. There was this woman named Cindy, shout out to Cindy in Warwick, who really was just, again, we're talking about a person who, she knew Ann, but she didn't know me. She didn't know anyone in my crew. And she just like let us have the house. Like she would go to work in the morning. Bye guys, have a good day. I'll be back later. You know, 7:30 in the morning. She's got her coffee in her hand and she's out the door. We're loading gear in through the front door. Just leaves us there, you know, all day long. Totally trusted us. We shot 12-hour days. You know, she'd come home and here's the thing, when I shoot in those situations, you know, you got to understand, we're not paying big money for these locations. So I try to make it as fun as I can for the homeowner, for the person who owns the location, meaning make it an experience. This person obviously loves the filmmaking process. Otherwise, they're not going to let us, you know, rule the roost and run all over the place in their house. So I leaned into that and I said, well, hey, listen, you know, Cindy, anytime you want, you know, your friends to come by and see what we're doing, and you guys are more than welcome to check it out. And, you know, I'm always at my monitor, obviously, in Video Village, as we call it. And, you know, I'd let her come hang out by monitor and see what's going on and make it fun for them, you know? So that was what was cool about shooting in Rhode Island. Had a little dust up with the Warwick police, and they were very cool to us as well. It's kind of funny. This is a classic Rhode Island story. And but when I say dust up, it's super extreme. It wasn't any kind of a dust up. They actually just showed up because, hey, let's face it, when you have giant lights in the middle of the street and they're, you know, potentially shining into people's houses and things like that, and it's not late but not early, you know, it's 9, 10 o'clock, approaching that 10 o'clock time at night, guess what? Someone's definitely going to call the cops on you. For sure.
For sure.
For fucking sure. You're getting the cops call. So basically, you know, they show up, and classic Rhode Island, I'm not going to name drop or anything, but I see one of the cops, and I see him, and he's a big guy, and I kind of recognize him. And it's like one of these moments where it's like, it's you. And it's like, it's you. You know, it's like this guy that I've been going to the gym with for years. And he's like, you know, we got the call about a movie and some lights in the street. And I said, I bet you that's Tom DeNucci. He's like, I figured this was you. And I was like, I guess my reputation precedes me. And he was really cool. And he basically, you know, basically was just like, look, guys, you know, by 11 o'clock, this needs to be done, because I convinced him to give you another hour, I think it was at the time. But, you know, that's about all that we can push it. And please try to be like ninjas when you're out here, silent, you know, work as quietly as you can, and then get the lights off by 11 and you're good. And that was huge for us, man, because if they pulled the plug right there, we would have been in a lot of trouble, because every hour is very expensive. I mean, I can't articulate to you enough. They say time is money. It's so true on a movie set. I mean, you're talking about thousands of dollars every hour that you're burning, because people are getting paid, and you've got equipment rentals, and you've got location rentals, and just it's like, you ever see that meter on your electric, the electric meter in the house? It's just spinning, and the cash is adding up. So this guy was nice enough to be like, yeah, you can stay out there for another hour. So again, you know, first-time filmmakers, young filmmakers, when the police show up, obviously be as polite as you can, and hope that you went to the gym with one of them and they give you the benefit of the doubt. No, that's half a joke. The truth is, just, you know, be polite, tell them what you're doing. Don't try to hide anything from them.
Right.
And explain, you know, it's one of those things where you got to just tell them what you're doing. And if you can, and I'm not telling you to lie, because I would never do that. Of course, I'm not a liar on a public forum, especially. But it's a business. Let them know that what you're doing here is, it's a business. You know, like, this isn't, even if you are kids running around with the camera, they're like, oh no, this is, we intend to get distribution for this. And the more serious you can make what you're filming appear to be, the less likely they are to hassle you, because it could be someone's job, there could be money on the line, so they're probably going to give you a little extra leeway that way. As the sirens, I don't know if you can hear them, but the police sirens are coming. They're like, DeNucci's giving away the secrets of how to deal with police during productions. Let's get down there. To the porch. Get to the porch.
So 14 days to film in Rhode Island, which is, you know, quick. That's quick. But like, how about the writing? Like, when you're writing this movie, like, how do you write for a dog? I mean, obviously you have a voice guy, but like, you have to take into account, like, you know, interactions with people and all of that, and then the rest of the cast. And so how was that for you to be able to write something? You know, it was the last movie that you had the burping pig. So is it different writing for a dog than it is writing for a pig?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, because that's definitely like one of the things that, as I went through the script, I'm thinking like, oh shit, like, what is this dog actually capable of doing? You know what I mean? So, and on the pig movie, I probably, you know, again, I wasn't the writer on that one, but I did like kind of go through the script before we shot it, and I was like a little like, can a pig do this stuff? Question mark. Whereas with this one, I'd say I actually went back a little bit, and I didn't have him do too much stuff. Like, by this movie, I had learned like some movie terms. Like, so when dealing with animals, there's something called an A to B, which is simply like, can you get this animal to go from point A to point B? Like, meaning, can they run the animal across the screen? Can they go from this door to that room? You know, and like, I knew that like A to B was a very like common thing that most animal trainers teach their animal. So I knew like, okay, I could probably get the dog to move around. I can probably like, you know, I'm not a dog guy. Everybody knows me. I'm a cat guy. All right. I don't know shit about dogs. The only things I knew about dogs were, they can do the paw, they can, roll over. Like, I know your very basic dog stuff. So this was great for me because I had a chance to bone up, joke number 3, on some dog stuff that I just didn't know. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not a dog guy. I became a dog guy. People don't hate me now. They're gonna say DeNucci hates dogs. He's a dog hater. No, I'm not a dog. I just never had a dog, and this movie opened me up and exposed me to these lovely animals. So I actually went backwards, and I said, let me do as little trickery as possible, other than moving around, and then we'll talk a lot about Chrissy Joy and Christine over at LTD Animals. But Chrissy Joy was basically like, she's the animal trainer, and she was like, hey, we read the script. He can do Beasley, the dog. He can do everything. So that was good. We'll get to that later. But basically, I didn't try and have the dog do too much because I wasn't sure what it was capable of doing. I had most of it rest on the human performances. And we wrote, I moved pretty quickly. I write this stuff. I tend to write it in, 4 to 6 weeks. This one came pretty quickly because we wanted to get it out and get, signed off on it pretty fast. But, the big thing for this was keep in mind that, Beasley's voice was going to be voiced over by, we didn't know who at the time, but we knew it was going to be a comedian or someone like that. So we wanted to make the dog kind of fun and funny, so that was part of it. And Richard and I went back and forth and shared some drafts. And I do remember that, initially Agent Toby Barks had a Barks Mobile, which was going to be like a vehicle that he drives around in. And I remember we had the Barks Cave, we had the Barks Mobile, and probably second draft, it was we probably ended up shooting third or fourth draft of this. But quickly by the second draft, I was like, we can't afford this Barks Mobile, can we? And I looked at the production designer, Ali Malillo, who we're going to talk about, and she's like, yeah, I don't think the Barks Mobile is possible. And I was just like, fuck, we got to get rid of the Barks Mobile. So the Barks Mobile didn't make it, but that was in the original concept. But yeah, it was really just about trying to, again, anytime you can write a movie with your elements already in mind, like we did, it's always, I don't want to say easier, but it's a lot more formulaic for you because you're like, okay, I knew that we were going to shoot this at Mardi Gras. I knew that place existed. So as I'm writing, I kind of know the space because I don't want to spend this whole podcast talking about Mardi Gras. But when working with Verdi Productions years ago, we shot at Mardi Gras. We shot there on a movie called A Bet's a Bet. And we shot there, on a couple of projects over the years. So I already knew the layout pretty well. Almost Mercy, we shot a little bit at Mardi Gras. This is my go-to little spot for a long time. So as I'm writing, I've got that in mind. So there's another little tip for potential young filmmakers. It's very helpful if you're making a smaller film, have an idea of where you want to shoot and write with that place in mind. Don't be so married to it that, oh my God, they knocked the place down. I don't have it anymore. Now I'm going to have to burn my script. Don't be married to it like that. You know what I mean? But it's very helpful, even if just for your writing process, so that, you as the writer have a navigational beacon, God damn it, and know where things are as you're writing them. It's very helpful. So yeah, the writing process was a good one and a quick one. Went through and I loved it. It was a fun time. And the nice thing, real quick too, we're going to talk about the cast soon. Working with some of these actors, working with a guy like Fred Sullivan, he probably wrote half of his dialogue because he's very quick-witted, improvisational, good stuff.
That's what's up. Tell us about Dan Hunter, director on this movie.
That mystery man.
The mystery guy. He has no picture on IMDb.
Yeah, Dan's a very shy guy. He doesn't like to come out of the woodwork very often. So Dan Hunter is a alter ego that I created that I used to write and direct kids movies and things like this. I feel like this is a big kind of reveal. Like, Wayne is giving up his identity. Only Dan Hunter is not remotely as cool as Bruce Wayne and hasn't done anything nearly as commendable. But look, Vault is a movie that I'm very proud of, and those are the kind of movies that I want to make moving forward. But I also like making these kids movies, and kind of having a lighthearted production every now and then. So having the Dan Hunter character, if you will, he's kind of a way for me to have a different brand of certain films that I'm making that may not necessarily mesh well with things like Vault or Almost Mercy. The truth is, too, I mean, I wouldn't want some parent of some cute little kid to have just seen Agent Toby Barks and maybe said like, oh, what else has this guy done? And then, see something very violent or very, maybe like accidentally show their kid another movie, or who knows. And look, that'd be probably a pretty boneheaded thing to do if you were a parent anyway, without watching the goddamn trailer or something.
Very true.
But it's just kind of like two worlds that I prefer to keep separate, as I live a life as a crime fighter in this world of filmmaking. So yeah, Dan Hunter is a up and coming family film filmmaker. We like the guy. He's all right. He's not very personable, and frankly, no one's really ever met him except for Richard and me.
Oh, well, good. Hey, you did a good job. So when you
he's all right.
Tell him he did a great job on this one. The next time you do some work with him,
he's in deep quarantine right now.
Nice. Interesting cast in this one. I mean, one of our favorites, Dean Cain, Jon Lovitz, lots of local talent. I've seen a lot of familiar faces in this one as well, from Rhode Island, and of course, can't be a Tom DeNucci production without some wrestlers.
Right. That's right.
Tell us about this cast.
Yeah, let's go right down the line. I mean, Dean Cain is a guy who, growing up, he was Superman on TV. So, obviously, I kind of have known who Dean Cain was my whole life. And my sister obviously had a massive crush on him, like most women did in the 90s. I remember Richard telling me that he was kind of the guy that they were looking to go after. And I was very excited about that right away. From there, it was one of those things where, okay, let's build the pieces around him. Now, we've all talked about this before, the name actor. In a movie like this, it's really important to have the name actor. So if we have our name actor, Dean Cain, and then we have, Jon Lovitz playing the voice, who we're going to talk about Jon in a little bit, then we have, as they say, this is a phrase you're going to hear a lot, then we have enough to make the movie. Like your cast is strong enough to make the movie. So from there, it's all about building a very strong team of local actors around those quote names. That's how independent filmmaking works at this level, because keep in mind, we're not in a position to where we can't afford to have 8 or 9 Dean Cains in the movie, and we can't afford to be flying people in and to be putting them up in hotels and things like that. So you have a couple stars in the film, sometimes only one. Like, for example, we have Dean Cain, and he's really our only massive name in the movie. And then from there, we build it up. So it was very important that I got a lot of really talented, really solid performers to play opposite Dean, and make that work. And you'd mentioned it yourself. The one thing that I'm kind of most proud of on this movie, aside from a lot of the way we filmed this dog, and this dog's unbelievable. We're kind of saving the dog for later because it's the main event. But working with this cast, the acting is something I'm really proud of in this film. There's really no weak performances. And sometimes when you watch these kind of kids movies, sometimes the performances can get a little shaky at best, and you can really get taken out of the illusion. It's almost like sometimes the acting is secondary on these kids movies.
Right.
Not pointing any fingers. I don't have any examples. but it just seems like that's something that they don't put as much effort in. Whereas for me, that's of chief importance. That's like the number one thing. Like, I want to make sure that when people watch this movie, if anything, they could be like, well, the performances were good. You know, we had some good acting in the movie. And I think, you know, I know we did that. Go down the list. Fred Sullivan, you know, he played our villain, you know, Agent Lane, who eventually puts together Lane Technologies, which is, you know, this company that they decide to rip off this invention. And this was a living cartoon character that Fred was able to create. And that's what we wanted. You know, we spent some time, Fred's in a lot of my films, and every time we work together, he'll come by, drop by the porch here, and we'll just kind of look at the character, break it open, and start talking about the dialogue, the beats, what we're trying to accomplish. And like I said, I mean, he writes half of his dialogue. You know, he's always like, I'll write a line and he'll be like, "Ooh, how about this?" And I'll be like, "Perfect." And it's always better. You know, it's always sometimes it's a little too, like, I'll have to rein it in because, you know, it's like almost too smart. I'm like, "Oh, Fred, we're trying to entertain 5-year-olds here. Let's bring it down a little bit." But it's almost always better and redefined, and it's fun to work with actors because, you know, it's like you take it to the grindstone and you make it smoother and smoother. So, you know, that was Fred. And Casey Seymour Kim, she's an actor who plays our aunt, who, you know, Aunt B is our famous inventor. And she's just charming and funny, and you feel for her at times. She does this crazy stunt where she does like a free fall off the back of a ladder and lands, you know, she's landing on her back, like a total trust fall kind of a thing, onto a bunch of pads, of course, but like that'll still knock the wind out of you. It'll ring your bell for the rest of, you know, conceivable rest of the hour. So she was very tough and just awesome to work with. And then we had these great kids, Charlotte Ciano, Jonah Copolelli. These are two kids that I've worked with for years. You know, Charlotte has been she was in an extra in the Christmas movie that I did, Saving Christmas. And then, you know, went on to just always be eager and wanting to do more. And this came up and she auditioned and just nailed it. And it was really great to work with her. And her features were close enough to Dean Cain where it kind of worked. And Jonah's a kid who, I worked with him on Almost Mercy. And then we worked together on Slime Bug. And then he appeared, you know, in Vault. Charlotte was also in Vault too. It's kind of funny. They were in the same scene where we needed a bunch of kids for like Deuce's family. So these are kids that I've literally gotten a chance to like watch them grow up, you know, behind the movie camera. And I felt like they were both ready for this kind of a role, you know, talking a lead role with some really talented actors, and they got to carry the ball, as they say, for quite a bit of it. You know, a lot of those scenes in Agent Toby Barks are driven by Jonah and Charlotte, their characters. You know, a lot of the big moments, you know, where they discover this dog, it's you know, that's kind of on them to pull that off. You know, if we whether we believe this or not is on their performance. It's based on them. So they really crushed it for me, and I'm very proud of what they did. And you know, I think that they're proud of their performances too. And everybody just got a lot better. You know, it's cool to see. You know, we're talking. Listen, this is Rhode Island. You know, these kids aren't show kids from LA, and I say that with like a little snarky tone in my voice. And I can't help but doing that. And I don't mean to knock anyone who is a show kid from LA or New York or any big market, but I guess what I'm trying to say is these aren't kids from a massive market who do this all the time. You know, these aren't kids who, you know, were moving from audition to audition every day of their life since they were 5 years old, or even younger. So for them, they're getting better at like this infinitely like crazy high arc. You know what I mean? Like, you actually get to see their skills get so much improved from like day 1 to day 3 or 4 or 5, like exponentially better. Because again, you know, like this isn't a massive market like New York or LA. Like they're not used to this. So it's cool because you can see those gains, acting gains, hashtag acting gains. You can see them come out pretty quick, and they've got better. You know, by the end of production, these kids were in the zone. So it's cool to work with them, and we'll talk about the wrestlers. You know, I've said it a million times. Wrestlers make great performers because you get a free stuntman out of the deal. And by free stuntman, I mean, doesn't mean we don't pay them. It means they know what they're doing and they can pull it off. So in this one, we had quite a few wrestlers, but the biggest wrestler on the marquee would be Tommy Dreamer, who I've worked with many times. He came in and played one of our agents. And I just wanted to add like a little action feel to him. You know, like he ended up being sort of like our comedic relief, but with a little action twist. And he did this really great fight scene with another wrestler by the name of Vinny the Horror King Marsiglia, who wrestles with Ring of Honor. And we had a couple of other wrestlers, some independent guys, Dexter LaRue. Shout out to Dexter, and shout out to the American Sumo. Sumo wrestling.
Sumo.
Is it sumo? Is it a no? Say
sumo.
It?
Yeah. See, sumo.
Yeah, sumo. Yeah, he's the. Yeah, I had a total like mental blank on that word. The American Sumo, Mike Buckley. Shout out to those guys who came in and they did a stunt too. It's just great to work with these guys because it's like, you know, one of the stunts required Dexter to be essentially squished by the American Sumo. He was a big guy, you can imagine. And it was really cool. We were kind of just chopping it up and talking about it. I was like, hey, how do you guys want to do this? And they were like, well, we do this one spot in the ring where, you know, I accidentally get flung into him and we ended up kind of like just squishing him, you know, pancaking him. And we could do that. And I was like, perfect. So it's fun to like take, they call them spots in the wrestling business. You know, like I'll do this, then you do this, and I do that. And that's like something that they'll do in every match. You know, that's one of their marquee spots they do. So it's fun to like take one of their wrestling spots and find a way to convert something that they already know how to do and do well and convert that to movies. You know, that's what I get a kick out of sometimes. So we get to do that. And listen, you know, there's a lot of other great cameos in this movie. I could spend the whole podcast just talking about the cast itself, but we got a lot more to get into. But you know, Nick Principe does an appearance in this movie. There's just a lot of cool people. Mike Zuccolo, who's been in a lot of my movies, does a cameo. It's loaded. This is a pretty stock performance. Amy Wade, you know, just a ton of awesome. The cast was pretty killer. I'm actually going to pull up the old IMDb.
IMDb is the
Agent Toby
is the king of like, hey, who's this guy? He looks familiar, and you just pull him up on IMDb and everything's right there. But I do want to say that like,
it is.
I do want to say that a lot of people might not know, or because Rhode Island, like you said, is a small market. But I love how you do a great job at like getting these like good local actors, and I want to stress good because there's a lot of like some guys like they want to put their friends in their movies, or you know, they want to like definitely give back to the communities they're working in while they're working in them. And you always do a good job at finding, like, you pull out a lot of the good talent that Rhode Island has to offer, and you give them a space. Even the folks that have had, like, you know, a little bit of success, like an Ava Gaudette, for example, who's a good friend of mine. She's had some success.
I was just going to talk about Ava.
She's had some success locally, but then also like a Nick Principe, but also like the younger kids that are coming up, they can see that, like, all right, Tom DeNucci, if he puts me in a movie, I'm going to do well because he's choosing me because I'm good at what I do, and not just because, like, he's my friend. You know what I mean?
I appreciate that, man.
I mean, that's it goes a long way in putting out a good quality product and like giving Rhode Island like a name in the movie world, as far as like, hey, if this guy's from Rhode Island and he's worked with Tom DeNucci, or, you know, and you know what I mean, he's generally a good actor. Same with the wrestlers too. Like some of these wrestlers, like you said, want to always act, and so you've given some good wrestlers. Like Tommy Dreamer has become a good actor over the movies that I've watched him in, that you've done with him. Like he's gotten exponentially better in every role. So
yeah, man, hey, I appreciate that. And you know, someone told me early on, because I remember I was doing this. You know, one of my mistakes was I was putting some of my friends in my movies, and wasn't maybe the best idea. And this isn't back when I was in film school. This wasn't even like anything to do with the business, you know, yet. And they were just like, well, hey, man, don't cast your friends. You know, that was like one of the early things I was told as a piece of advice. Like, don't cast your friends. Find people that are really, really talented. And that kind of is something that like always stuck with me. And naturally, like, look, these people all became my friends. But I think one of the mistakes that people make early on is they think that, oh, my buddy Ronnie is wicked funny, and you know, anytime we have a fire out in the backyard, like everyone's laughing their balls off at Ronnie. Guess what? When you turn the camera on, Ronnie's not so funny. You know, suddenly Ronnie's not good because he's not a trained actor. You want to find people that have training. You want to find people that have ability. That doesn't mean that you're not going to naturally find some diamond in the rough. But you know, don't rely on that. Rely on real actors that are trained. You said Ava Gaudet, and you know, she's unbelievable. She played one of our agents and basically helped kind of navigate through some of the story beats. And again, like what I really liked about her performance was anytime we're in a kids movie, it's real easy to like keep our eye off the ball and the whole thing just becomes a cartoon. And it's okay for it to have cartoon elements, but a performance like Ava's performance in this helped ground it. You know, it helps kind of ground the performance. And if like, oh, well, we believe her. So if we believe her, then we probably believe that there's an actual talking dog involved in this movie as well. Right. So like by her performance being believable, now suddenly all the cartoon elements become believable too. So it really helps. Tom Glenn is an actor that, you know, he's from Florida, who I worked with in a movie down south, and we worked together on Vault. It was really cool. It's one of those stories where we become buddies, and you know, he wanted to do anything. He's like, I'll do anything to get an opportunity type guy, and I love those kind of guys, and that's kind of how I've always been. So I respect that. And on Vault, I was like, look, man, I don't have anything big for you. I got like one scene. There's like one scene in Vault where like a bunch of Irish guys get shot by a gangster. Like someone kicks the door in and blasts them all away. Now you can see why I have an alien as Dan Hunter, because we don't want the kids to see that stuff.
No.
So basically, they're not old enough to see that yet. So basically, Tom, I was like, look, Tom, if you want, you can play one of these Irish guys that gets blown away at the table. You know, and he's got great, like really strong features and a cool beard and red hair. And I was like, yeah, if you look great as one of the Irish guys that gets blasted. Most people wouldn't want to do that. You know, most people would say, oh, and by the way, and this is, you know, I'm not saying this is by no means a knock to Tom. This is a show his dedication and to show you what it can lead to. But I said, Tom, look, man, here's the deal. I can't fly you out here. There's no money for this role. So yeah, it's an extra role. It's not a big paying gig here. He said, bro, if I can stay with you, I'm down. I'll fly myself up there. Let's fucking do it. I said, all right, Tom. You know, so he came up and stayed in my guest room for a couple nights. We had a great time. We shot the scene. It came great, and had a couple nice dinners here in Providence, and he was on his way. But it showed me that, listen, you know, this guy's dedicated enough to do anything to get himself on set. You know, made some good relationships, met some people. And then a year later, we're cast in this movie, and there's this character called the Wolfman. I said, Tom, don't shave, don't cut your hair. You're going to play this Wolfman character. So it's one of those things where, you know, you got to stay on people's radar. I guess that's the lesson. You know, sometimes don't be afraid to invest in yourself a little bit of money, whether it's a flight somewhere or whether it's you know, I got to stay at a hotel a couple days to go to this thing. Invest in yourself, because you never know what that opportunity could lead to down the road. So that was Tom. And oh man, Dena Cataldi is another Rhode Island actor who was awesome in this movie. She plays Tom's counterpart, Cinderella. Slamderella.
Slamderella.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Slamderella. Which I thought was a really cool name. Maybe I'm going to use that again. We're going to have an offshoot, a Slamderella spinoff.
Nice.
But yeah, if I forgot anyone, you know, Amy Wade, I think I mentioned Claudio, really great actor, done some cameos. If I forgot anyone, I'm deeply sorry, but we must move on to talk about the real star, Beasley the dog, or actually whatever we're talking about next.
Oh yeah, no, that's where we were definitely moving because he's the star of the whole situation. Beasley.
Yeah,
the
let's
dog.
talk about Beasley. What did you think of Beasley, Daryl?
He was cute. He's little and cute. You know, I'm a fan of bigger dogs, but bigger dogs they probably can't do the things that he was able to do as far as like, you know, being a secret agent. Because big dogs are just
they
muscle.
don't have the athleticism. Is that what you're trying to say? A nice way of saying it.
Yeah. Big dogs are clunky. They're clunky and they don't move well.
They lack athleticism. Well, there's a funny story about big dogs for this one too. But Beasley was a pretty cool find. So shout out to Paul Luba, one of the producers on this movie, who found Beasley. And to find Beasley, you'd be surprised. It really just kind of came down to a good old fashioned, Google search, animal trainers. And you'd be surprised there's not a ton of people who do this. This is a bit of what they call a niche market, people who train animals for cinema. And we were able to get in touch with Chrissy Joy and Christine. Christine runs a company called LTD Animals, and they do everything from horses to dogs to chickens and birds and sheep. And you need an animal, you call LTD Animals, and Christine will take care of you. So basically, we've got this package deal that was quickly put together by Paul to bring Chrissy Joy and Beasley, who, dude, I saw one tape and a few photos of this dog, and I literally was just like, that's it, get us this dog right away. The dog had won, I believe he was like the 2018 Trick Dog Champion or Dog Trick Champion. I prefer Trick Dog. It sounds cooler.
Trick Dog sounds cooler.
Like I'm the Trick Dog Champion, rather than I'm the Dog Trick Champion, whatever. But basically, he was this champion dog who, when I saw this tape, man, let's put it this way. This dog was basically doing like the NFL Combine in this video. You know what I mean? It was like he's performing at the NFL Combine. Like he was doing like different drills, like, like Chrissy would be like, oh, Beasley, I've dropped something. Please put it in the trash for me. Could you throw that out? Like the dog would like pick up the piece of trash and go over to the trash can and open it. Like the dog was functioning like a damn human.
Wow.
So nice. I was like, I saw this tape and I was like, oh my goodness. And it was a demonstration of Chrissy basically like showing off what the dog can do at one of those dog shows. So I was like, Paul, you got to get this dog. Get me this talking dog. And he did, and negotiated a really great deal. And Chrissy was looking to work. Chrissy had done some, Beasley, I should say, the dog had done some commercials, but was looking to really break into acting and film. And this was his opportunity to break into the game. So they came up from, I believe they're from Maryland. They hitched their wagon and came up to Rhode Island, and they stayed up here for a few weeks and worked on the movie. And when I tell you, like, again, like this dog exceeded my expectations, like you could not believe, when I wasn't sure of what it was capable of doing. I really didn't. I thought that we would have to, you write a script and you have all these exciting ideas in your imagination, but you always consider like, well, we might have to pull some of this back. Like, can the dog really do this stuff? But in actuality, I remember my first conversation with Chrissy was like, yep, we looked through the script and, he can do everything here, like the computer. And I'm like, what do you mean the computer? She's like, oh, he can like take his paw on a mouse and like scroll around. I'm like, the dog uses a computer? So like things that like, when I wrote in the script, like I didn't really think he was going to actually use the computer. I just figured like we'd have him stand like a dog in front of the computer and take a shot. I didn't think he'd be able to actually grab the mouse and move it around. And so if anything, like the script kind of like got better when Beasley showed up. That's because Chrissy was like enlightening me to all this shit that he can do. that we just had no idea he was capable of even doing.
You didn't have to use the fake paw on the stick.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, man, because we were talking about that early on. I remember talking to Allie, my production designer, and being like, depending upon what kind of dog it is, maybe we could just get like you said, man, a paw on a stick and like use it for close-ups if he's gonna touch something. And Beasley was like, yeah, don't insult me, okay? I can handle that myself. So shout out to Beasley, shout out to Christy, Joy, and Christine. I can't say enough great things about both of those women and what they did for this movie. And you hear this thrown around a lot, but we flat out couldn't have done this movie without them. You know, they were the heartbeat of this film for sure.
That's what's up. Now, when it comes to crew, we know that you have your usual suspects that you really enjoy working with. Were you able to have those guys on this, or did you go with a couple of new faces on this movie?
This was kind of like a hybrid. There was a lot of old faces, a lot of new faces, and it was cool because some of the people that I had been working with at one level had kind of leveled up. For example, we mentioned Paul Luba, who's a producer on this movie. I remember when Paul was an intern, a couple of years ago. So he's really worked hard to get to where he is, and he can kind of, run the whole show now. And he did a great job in this film. Chad Verdi Jr. also came on and was an executive producer on this movie. And I mean, when you're talking about, we're gonna get into it a little bit later with like how you stretch the budget, how you take your budget and make it bigger. Chad Jr. had a lot to do with that, and he found us vehicles, and he just drove the vehicles. He was kind of a jack of all trades and did anything and everything to make this movie run smooth. Was a really good leader with a lot of the interns that we had a great crop of interns come up on this movie. And the art department was everything on this film. Ali Malillo working in the art department, production designer, designed all the sets, built a lot of them. It was pretty incredible what she did. The Barks Cave was a set that we built inside of an old rodeo dance hall. So it was kind of funny to, you're in this rodeo dance hall, but then you walk in and it's like this underground lair for a dog. So she worked really hard at that. It was cool, she recruited the help of my cousin Eric, aka the Dude, and my good friend Billy Hebert. They both came in, and these are just guys who know a thing or two about construction, and Allie hired them. Again, we're on a low budget and we just got to make it happen. So we appreciate them coming in and helping. And just so many people came in for the cause. And hair and makeup, Brenda and Gia, those are two people that I've worked with on so many movies. And it's just great to have them on board and, know that like, okay, all of my actors are going to look terrific. They're going to look top notch. And even beyond that, they're capable of doing some effect stuff. It was just, it was a really great, some of the new faces. We had a new special effects guy to do this really cool frozen look, which we appreciated. Let me pull up my crew here. It's always good to see the full cast and crew. And, when we do these shows, again, if we ever leave anyone out, we don't mention someone, we don't mean it. We're not trying to hurt anyone. It's just a lot of people to mention, like Steve Levin worked in the camera department with me. Awesome dude. Obviously, Brendan Maxim shot this movie, Brendan Maxim was a gaffer, aka the lighting coordinator, if you will, on Almost Mercy. So a lot of people kind of came into this one. Louisa Pena, Matt Campbell, Maura McCarthy did costumes. She's done costumes on a lot of my movies. Vault. So it was fun to work with her again. And this reminds me of also the cast. We forgot to mention Brett Azar. Back it up real quick to talk about Brett Azar, who played Horace the Horrible. Cool thing about Brett Azar, he was Arnold Schwarzenegger's body double in the last 2 Terminator movies.
Oh,
So
snap.
like he shows up, yeah, he's the exact dimensions of Arnold. He's 6'2", 240 pounds of solid muscle, competition bodybuilder, pro level kind of guy. And he's huge. I mean,
Yeah, he's
it's
jacked.
funny, I've been a lifelong gym guy, and you get to like one level, and then like you see somebody like that, you're like, holy shit, like what? Like how is this possible? He's massive, and he's so dedicated, man. I mean, I follow him on Instagram, and like the guy eats clean year round. I mean, he's like practically on a bodybuilding diet all year round and trains constantly. And you see the work these guys put in. It's, you don't just like, hit the fucking gym a couple times and, do some bicep
Right.
curls and wake up like that one day. It's a life dedication. But it's cool to work with Brett. Yeah, like I said, if I'm forgetting anyone, if I missed anyone, I'm terribly sorry. Dan Hunter didn't really get to say much. I'm sorry for him. But these things happen.
So when we talk
Trying to
about
figure out who did it.
when we talk about the budget and 14 days and how do you stretch that? Obviously, you call in your favors, like you mentioned before, and get as much pro bono work as you can. Get it? Pro bono work.
Pro bono. Dad joke number 4.
What was it like having going from like Vault, which was like a relatively larger budget for what you're used to, versus now you're coming down a little bit. How do you adapt?
It's not easy, man, and it really was. For a second, it's kind of like when you're in the batting cages and you go from like really fast pitches to like really slow pitches, in the sense that like like a changeup in baseball, like that can throw you off. Like, oh, my timing was at one speed, and now I got to figure this out and do it at a different speed. But the essence of what you're doing is all the same. You're still just trying to tell a story with cameras, and that's what you got to realize at the end of the day. Is it going to be as glorious as if you had all the money to spend on it? Probably not, but you can still tell your story. So what it came down to was just figuring things out. We needed to stretch the dollar at every corner, right down to catering. Catering obviously wasn't free, but we got a really great deal. My friend owns a restaurant here in Rhode Island, and they took care of us and gave us a really great deal. And everything right down from catering to wardrobe. Maura McCarthy knows how to stretch the dollar, and she knows how to thrift shop and find things inexpensively. And same thing with even like, all right, for example, like our hair department, like someone like Brenda McNally, like she already owns a lot of her own equipment, so that like when you hire her, she's going to come with a bag of tricks and a lot of elements that she can bring to the table. And same thing with Brandon Maxham, like he knows a ton of lighting people, so that like if you hire him, chances are he's going to get you a really great deal on a lighting package. Again, I mentioned Chad Birdie. Chad had a lot of hookups, with a car dealership, a production van, really, really low cost. A couple of the picture cars he was able to get us for real cheap. So it's every angle. It really comes down to, you have your budget, you have a bunch of line items. You need to figure out a way to like cut every tiny little line item down, so that you have enough to tell your story, keep your crew fed and comfortable. Things like water bottles, things like porta potties, make sure you have enough bathrooms, like all that stuff needs to be figured out. So those are some ways of stretching the budget, and everyone stayed at my house. I mean, this is kind of funny, to save some money. Kind of worked out really well. There was a crew house, which was on the same property of Mardi Gras. My friend who owned that building, like also owned a very small house that, had a couple of bedrooms and in a family room and a couple bathrooms. It wasn't that small. But we were able to rent that out for the month and put our crew in there. So we had basically on campus crew for like,
Nice.
6 to 8 guys living in this house, plus a bunch of people were living in my house. The porch was standing room only in the porch almost every night. And we had a lot of fun. That's why this was a really great vibe altogether. But yeah, man, this was one where you have a lot of people brought their skills out, particularly too, like we talked about it, like Ali Malillo. Over the years, she's built up quite the kit of just, again, for the art department, stuff that she already owns and things that we don't necessarily have to go out and get. And if we do have to get them, she knows where to go to get them the cheapest and how to get them on the for next to nothing to make it all work.
Yeah, that's key. That's key when you're working with any budget, to be able to cut it down, save a little money here and there, to be able to maybe, repurpose that for something else. But I want to get into what it's like to work with like a legend like Jon Lovitz.
Oh man, Jon Lovitz. Oh, by the way, real quick before we go into Jon Lovitz, Joe Rossi. That's the name that I knew his name was Joe. I was trying to find the last name. Shout out to Joe Rossi. He did the Frozen makeup on Fred Sullivan. So when you see Fred look like a snowman, frosty kind of character at the end, that was all Joe Rossi. Shout out to him for making that happen. Jon Lovitz. That guy is a legend. He really is as funny as you would make him out to be. That character is him. That voice that he kind of does, is really his voice. He's just one of these guys who showed up. He showed up to the recording studio with his dog, which was kind of fun. And he had this tiny little white dog who was like ugly cute kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Had like the exposed coming out. And he was like, "This is my acting coach." And I was like, "Yeah, sure, bring him in." And he came in, man, and we started talking, and it was cool because at first he was like, "Let me see some of the movie. Let me see it." And we were like, "Okay." And I was a little nervous at first because, quick aside, Jon Lovitz is a guy that he's almost like a Forrest Gump of acting in a way, like meaning he's in so many different movies that you may not think of right away, but then you're like, "Oh shit, that's right." And like if you played the Kevin Bacon game with Jon Lovitz, like he's literally connectable to like anyone because he's been in so many fucking movies. I mean, man, you don't realize it, like from A League of Their Own, like you drop A League of Their Own on people and you're like, "Oh fuck, that guy can actually act." Like he can actually put, aside from being funny, like he's a great actor. Forget about the years on SNL and the Critic, his cartoon, the animated
one of
show,
the funniest shows
Critic.
ever on TV.
Bro, that show was so ahead of its time. If you think about it, the Critic was one of the first animated shows geared towards adults. We're not trying to get laughs out of little kids. This is a cartoon for adults. I know they weren't the first, but they were one of the first. And if you look at it now, like that's such a common thing. Cartoons for adults. It's every other show on TV. It seems like a cartoon. Anyway, so I'm not starstruck, but I'm definitely like a little like humbled by having Jon Lovitz in the recording studio about to show him the movie. So he sees it, and I was immediately kind of put at ease when he starts giggling at the first couple moments in the movie, with the dog. He's loving the dog stuff. Anything Beasley does is a laugh. And he watches about 5 minutes. He got the vibe of it. He wanted to feel the vibe of the production. What kind of voice should I do kind of thing. And we watched about 5 or 10 minutes, and he goes, "Okay, are we ready? Should we do it?" I'm like, "Let's do it." We get him mic'd up, and he just starts riffing, and here's how it works. It works just how you'd think it would work. I mean, he has a script. He's standing in front of like, a music stand with his script in front of a microphone, and we're playing the video, and I've got my script, and we're kind of just going through it with him, and I'm not fabricating this when I tell you the entire session for the whole movie, he was in and out in less than 2 hours. I want to say, like, as far as like actual recording time, I think we were recording for about an hour and 20 hour and 25 minutes. He did the whole movie. And that's not to say that like we bullshitted through it and he didn't give a fuck about it. I mean, he was just so good at what he did in terms of he would hit one line and then he'd look at me like, how's that? Was that good? And I'd be like, yeah, you got it. You know, like he nailed it almost every time. And occasionally I would give him a little tweak or a little adjustment. And if I did, guess what? Take two, nailed it, you know? And then there was some room too. Like this was my favorite part, you know, I'll never forget this. You know, we're talking and we're working and, you know, just riffing with him, you know, like him adding a couple little jokes here and there. Oh, this would be funny. Let's make a joke about the foyer. And he says foyer. And, you know, we're just to be able to have a little bit of improv comedy action with Jon Lovitz, a guy who was on SNL for years and has comedy DNA running through his blood. You know, for me, a kid from Cranston, Rhode Island, to be able to get in the ring and, you know, do a little comedic sparring with Jon Lovitz, it was a very exciting feeling that like I'll never forget. And we did get one. You spoke about the critic. There was one moment where there's like a stink bomb that goes off, and I didn't know how he'd feel about this because sometimes people don't like it when you harp on their catchphrases and stuff. But I said, John, do you mind if when that stink bomb comes off, you say that, you know, that line from your TV show? Oh, it stinks. And I'm like, yes. He goes, oh, that's great. I love it. So like he was into it, you know. It was cool to see that. We finished the session. We shake hands, and then I say to him, which is funny to think because you can't even shake anyone's hand now in the Corona world. But we shake hands, and I say to him, you know, I wanted to get a picture with the guy. You know, he's kind of a dude that I'm not a huge fanboy, but occasionally it's nice to have a photo of somebody like that you worked with because A, life is short, and B, you never know when you're going to encounter that person ever again. And, you know, to me, that was kind of a special day. So I said, hey, look, John, you know, and I gave him my little personal tidbit of fandom. I said, you know, when I was a little kid, I watched the Three Amigos over and over again until my tape broke, you know, and you know, you probably remember, if you're laughing, you remember that movie.
Oh my God.
And you remember him in it. And I love that film. And he's great in the beginning of that movie. And he laughed kind of like how you laughed, because I think that's probably one that he doesn't hear all the time. You know what I mean?
Right.
And he goes, oh, you like that one? I go, I love that movie so much. And not that I needed to win him over or anything, but that kind of got him in the right place to be like, hey, can we take a picture? And he couldn't have been more gracious. We took a couple shots. I was there with Jason, our producer, and Richard, and in the booth, and we took some pics. And man, it was a great day. I'm kind of smiling just thinking back at that day, and that was fun, man. Nice day with Lovitz.
Word. So the movie's wrapped up now. Everything is ready to go, and then we're in post production. You know, was that a long process for this movie? Like how, like editing and making its way to feature filmdom?
The big thing about this one was, you know, we had to get the cut done pretty quickly because we knew that animating the mouth was going to take a long time, and we wanted to hit the delivery date. So the edit took place in California, in LA. Richard and I worked with a guy by the name of Kaiser, just cutting this thing up real fast. I mean, I was only in the editing booth for 4 or 5 days. That's it. And we banged this thing out. You know, Kaiser had put together a cut. Richard had worked with him on that. I showed up in LA. We were in the editing booth for a week or so. And that was it. You know, everything else beyond that, we fixed over the phone through conference calls. And the movie got shipped off to Canada. And north of the border, they worked on the animation, color correction, all the special effects. David Bateman did the music. David's a really talented composer. He's actually, I want to say he's from Michigan. I think he's a Detroit guy. Like he's one of your Detroit fellow. What are they, Detroiters? Is that what you call a guy? Yeah, he's a Detroiter, I think, or at least a Michiganer, or Michiganite, whatever.
I think it's Michigander. I think it's
Michigander.
Yeah.
That sounds like you did a little like illegal business. Like he was arrested for Michigander. It's like philandering. But so this came together, and that's another fun thing about the way the movies are put together these days. You're doing posts in LA, Michigan, and Canada, and it all kind of comes together. I never stepped foot in Michigan or Canada, but I did some editing in LA. We got it out pretty quick, and we got that mouth moving. It wasn't easy. Let me tell you something. Like, the guys in Canada did a really great job animating Toby's mouth.
That's what's up. So, favorite moment from the set?
Well, there was a big moment where we had just about every animal working the same day. Christine had her hands full that day. She shows up, again, LTD Animals. She shows up with a truckload of animals. And I'm talking a horse. I'm talking goats and sheep and chickens and everything you can imagine. Almost like a petting zoo showed up to the building that day. And remember, part of the plot is they're testing on animals. They're trying to get animals to talk in this movie. That's part of the premise. So we wanted to show this one shot of all the animals working, and it was this long, elaborate shot that kind of, coiled through the entire space. And it was really exciting stuff. And that was a fun day, just to pull that off and to see all the animals working together, and to see, a chicken standing, clucking by my sound man, Joe Cantor. Shout out to Joe, a guy who I've worked with a million times. See like chickens jumping up on his sound card, and animals everywhere, and a horse in the middle of Mardi Gras nightclub, and it was a sight to see. And again, on one of these smaller budgets, to see something like that come together with really only a couple of extra hands, it's pretty amazing stuff. So that was a big day. And then, like, a fun moment would probably be, we had a cat on set. Part of the scene was, the cat eventually talks. They get him to talk, and Fred Sullivan, our actor, is, he's a cat guy himself. And for whatever reason, I think the cat was distracted by the boom pole, and it got a little too close, and the cat just snapped and jumped out of Fred's arms and clawed him on the way down, and bolted and ran out of the studio where we were shooting, and ran into the parking lot. And, like, not one guy, not two guys goes, dude, everybody drops what they're doing and they run after the cat. So now we've got, like, 15 people from the crew running outside. Finally, I was like, hey, let's have like one or two people chase the cat down, and maybe the rest of us will make the movie over here. Not that we wanted anything bad to happen to the cat, but time is money, and I can't, you can't be playing chase the cat for 2 hours. But luckily, we got that furry little, to come in. We got him, or her. I think it was a lady cat. But that was kind of fun, because what was funny about it was it made it into the movie. So if you watch the scene where Fred is handling the cat, yeah, that scene where the cat is like, getting crazy and jumps out of his arms, that wasn't in the script. That cat just got nutty, and I said to myself, well, geez, good on Fred to stay in character and not really break it. He didn't break the moment, and I was able to kind of use that. And it kind of worked with the fact that the cat wouldn't like this evil, creepy character anyway. So it worked. Those are the fun times.
That's what's up. Hey, man, Agent Toby Barks, fantastic little kids film. What's next on the docket for the world famous Tom DeNucci? Where are we going next with the Porch?
Well, man, real quick, if you're looking to get Agent Toby Barks, you can get it on YouTube, Google Play, Amazon Prime. It's like $4.99, and little download. Grab yourself check it out, and maybe it'll keep the kids occupied for 90 minutes or so, and you'll get a little entertainment out of it as well. What's next is kind of a big question mark, man. I mean, a lot of us filmmakers are in a real state of flux right now. We don't know quite yet what the rules are going to be when we do go back to work. Obviously, things are going to be a lot stricter. Things are going to be, a changed environment. I don't think you're going to see a lot of, little things that I can think of will never be the same. I can remember days when you'd be on a movie set and there'd be a platter of cheese and crackers out on the crafty table, or fresh fruit out in a bowl. You're never going to see that shit ever again. You know what I mean? Like the idea that there's just food out that isn't individually wrapped or bagged. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Those days are over. Like we'll now live in the world of unit dosages. And I wish I owned a plastic factory that makes, plastic, because everything's going to be wrapped in plastic for the rest of our lives.
Sure.
But I guess that's just the world we're living in. But what's next for me is just, the one thing that we can do while we're in quarantine and lockdown and going through the phases, we can write. We can always write. And that's what I've been doing. I've been very fortunate. I've had a couple of great opportunities to write some scripts, and I've been hired to work on a documentary, which I'm happy to talk a little bit about maybe next time on the next episode. And got hired to write another kids movie. So, we're staying busy in the developmental world, and we're kind of, we're kind of putting our toe in the water and feeling it out to see what the rules and regulations are going to be when we do get back to work. And we hope that day is soon, but we don't know. And as for you and me, in our next episode of The Porch, I'm thinking maybe we should do an episode about, like, just clear the air about, like, what artists can do while they're in this period. Like, we could talk a little bit about how I know you've been writing something.
I have.
We can talk about, your writing process. I've been working on a bunch of stuff. I'm happy to dive into my process a little bit and just maybe help people out there who maybe they're not working their day job right now because their day job might not be currently happening, and maybe they're looking to get into something creative. Maybe we can give people some pointers on, hey, here's some great ways to get started on a new writing project. If you want to get started, you've got some extra downtime, this is how you do it. Do you think maybe that'd be a helpful show we could do?
Absolutely. I think it'll be helpful for, guys like myself, you know what I mean, who my industry is currently closed. So, it was a good opportunity for me to sit down and really, like, let some of this creative juice flow out that's separate from, like, DJing. And, I think it'd be good for people to kind of see that and, get into your process and how you work. And, workflows are different for everyone. So just being able to give everybody some, what's the word I'm looking for? Creative treat.
Yeah, it's almost like a camp, like a creative camp.
Like
we'll
a little
call it creative camp. Creative camp. We got it.
Yeah.
You just see that, guys? That's how ideas are born. Just like that. So next week, you check us out, or it probably won't be next week, but it'll be the next episode. We're going to be doing our creative camp and how you can get a little time on your hands. Come on down to creative camp with Daryl and Tom. We'll show you how to get a little usage out of that extra time that you have.
Absolutely.
And as always, this show was brought to you by Woodhaven Media. That is my company. Hey, filmmakers out there, you looking for some advice on something? You want to know what's up? You want some consulting? Do you have a project that needs to be written? Do you have anything that you want to get off the ground? That's something that I do. I provide a service. I'm a consultant. You can call me, and we can arrange some time to chat about what you got going on, and give a message to me on Facebook. I've got a writer-director page, Tom DeNucci, writer-director. If you type it in the search bar there, it'll come up. Tom DeNucci, DeNucci, writer, director. And I try to post stuff on there just about every day. And we post photos from past movies, little stories, little videos, things like that. A lot of great content. So check me out on there. And if you're looking to maybe get involved or work with me in some way, shape, or form, drop me a message.
Word. Make sure you hit him up, man. It's Tom DeNucci, actor, writer, or writer-director. Tom DeNucci, writer-director on Facebook. Make sure you check him out. Hit him up. Tap him for his knowledge. But, shit's not free. So make sure you talk to him about, how you can be better at what you do when it comes to making movies. He's got a lot of great knowledge to offer folks. So hopefully people are seeing this and then taking advantage of it. Make sure you hit us up on all the social medias. Check the podcast on YouTube and everywhere else where you can get podcasts. All the episodes are there for your enjoyment. Binge watch it, because I know you don't have anything else to do right now except watch our beautiful mugs for 13 episodes coming up as we close the door on, or the proverbial doggy door is swinging in and closing for this episode.
Number 5.
So check us next time. This is the episode 13 of The Porch in the books, and we're out of here. We'll check y'all next time.